Hello everybody, and welcome to today's OpenNTF webinar, How Did You Do This? Here from the winners of the XPages App Dev Contest. My name is Niklas Seidloff. I'm the chair of the OpenNTF Technical Committee and the director of the board. Bruce Elgott has asked me to moderate this webinar since he's out on vacation. As always, everyone who's attending the live webinars can ask questions that our speakers will answer. Just type your questions into the e-meeting chat or ask your questions at the end when I will open up the lines again. We will also post a recording of this webinar. Check out our YouTube channel or visit webinars.opentf.org for a list of previous and future webinars. In the first half of this year, OpenNTF hosted another XPages App Dev Contest as part of the Appathon. We received incredible contributions and blogged earlier about what these projects do. Today you will hear from some of the winners of the contest not only what their projects do, but more importantly how the developers have built these projects. Since we have less than 1 hour, the speakers will focus on some of the key patterns and describe them in a little bit more detail. The speakers are 3 XPages experts, all well known in the community. First, Oliver Busse will describe how he has built his Twitter Bootstrap framework for XPages. Then Paul Withers will explain some key techniques, how he has built the OpenLog logger. And in the third part, Jens Bruntt will talk about how he has used the Domino REST APIs from his Android app. And now, without further ado, I hand over to our first speaker, Oliver Busse. Oliver, please go ahead.
Hello everybody. My name is Oliver Busse, and I will show you some key parts of the Bootstrap Template Kit and how to integrate it in your own application, as well as some techniques and the why, and answer the question why I did this way. First slide, some introduction for myself. I'm located in Dresden, in the wonderful town of Dresden in Germany. I'm working with Node since the year 2000, and my key focuses are web development, XPages development, and using JavaScript frameworks. So what's on the list? The agenda is for me showing to essential components from the Bootstrap Template Kit, the main components, as well as some items to reuse in your own application. The main part is the layout control, so I will show you how to program the layout control to fit your needs. Essential components from the template kit are the Bootstrap layout control, the about control, the legal control, and the vertical nav control. This is optional for creating vertical navigations. These controls need some code elements, Java code elements, especially the page controller element, which uses page objects to compute the primary navigation. And of course, as we use a JavaScript framework here, you have to have a look at the web content folder of your Node database. To dive deeply into the navigation control, we have to look at the layout control, the CC Bootstrap layout custom control. This slide shows some elements from it, the primary navigation on the top. At the bottom, you can see the CC legal custom control embedded in that layout control. That's some kind of the copyright information. And not visible on this slide is the CC about control. It's just the about box to bring up with some client-side JavaScript. I will focus on the programming of the primary navigation part. And we have a closer look at the programming possibilities from the office primary navigation. The navigation bar on the top is actually a repeat control. A repeat control which is computing each single page entry from the class called page controller in the code elements. I will show a live demo afterwards, but now we have to have a look at the page controller class, especially in the part where you define the navigation elements. The page controller has a method to return all the elements. The elements are built from an array list containing page elements. Each element can be added. You can see using the add method of the array list object, and is filled with the page element. The page is another class, and it's a constructor. One of the constructors, there are 3 or 4, I think, is used to define how the navigation entry is displayed, what label, the URL where it points to, which icon should be used to display a Boolean parameter that defines if the entry is rendered or not. You can calculate the visibility of an entry by several things. And if the link or the target should show up in a new blank window, especially when defining external sites with external links, that might be helpful. Can you still hear me? I got a crack in the line. Okay. Essential components. The navigation entries should be or can be computed by other sources, data sources, for example. I used the programmatic approach to have the flexibility to compute the navigation entries using maybe configuration documents or other nodes documents. You can compute the link text from localization property files or also from nodes documents. And maybe you can compute the visibility of links from the user's roles or the ACL levels. If you have any other ideas, let me know. So I will show you a quick demo of the usage of the navigation page controller. I will do this here. This is the page controller class. I will maximize this. And as you can see, sorry, I have to share the screen. Okay, what I have here is the page controller class you just saw on the slide. The page controller class consists of 3 items I added to this init method. The result is something like that. You have 3 entries on this top navigation bar. So if you want to add another entry, you just have to add an item, as you can see, with an icon, a target page, and the link text. So if I reload this, you can see the new entry here. Okay, I will stop the sharing, returning to my slides. I have to hurry up a bit. Another focus on the Bootstrap Template Kit is to define some reusable form elements, such as that beautiful form elements with the prepending or appending icon buttons to click on it and show up some dialogues or help elements. This one deals with date fields and with the Bootstrap, respectively the jQuery date picker. This slide shows the original Bootstrap markup to achieve an item, as you can see on the screenshot, upper right side, a date field or a field with a calendar icon button aside. So to transform it, to make it reusable, and to bind it to your data source, I had to define the corresponding XSP markup. I tried to highlight the classes and the elements that are taken from the original Bootstrap markup. As you can see, there is a div around everything with a special class, the input append. For example, this is computed only if the form is editable. The XSP shows a document that is editable. And further, we have a link representing the button and the icon calendar graphic to click on. This works as a combination from the jQuery date picker and the Bootstrap layout. And the goal is to show the date picker when the user either clicks into the field or clicks on the button that is on the right side. The trick is to define classes on the item and the button also. The field is styled with a class called datePicker, and the button has a DP trigger class. Of course, you need client-side JavaScript to achieve the effect. You have to assign or attach the two classes with the corresponding events. The date picker item is really simple. The trickier one was the button. If you click the button, then you focus the element, which then brings up the date picker control. A little tricky. So what this item does not have yet is a localization. It will have a localization soon. The client-side JavaScript is not integrated in the custom control, so you have to store it in a script library or something. And it works with just one data source for the moment. This is the current document. To show you what I mean, I have to activate the screen sharing. Wait a moment. Okay, I will bring up the page that uses the date picker custom control, or the date field. I have a small form here in my XPage, and the custom control is called IT date field. And the IT date field is dropped into the page. The control has two required properties, custom properties, maybe the item name, this is essential, and the definition if it's a required field or not. And if you open the XPage, you see the control here working now. Focusing the form element brings up the date picker, and clicking the button also brings up the date picker as the item is focused. So okay, that's it for me. If you have any questions, go to the OpenNTF page and ask a question, give feature request or something else. And yes, thanks for watching. I will hand over to Paul.
Thank you. So my project was the XPages OpenLog logger. Just a bit of background on me. I'm an ICS consultant from Intech Systems Limited in the UK. And I've been working with XPages for a number of years now. A bit of history on OpenLog. I'm hopeful that everyone on the call is aware of OpenLog, but it's a wonderful OpenNTF project by Julian Robichaud for detailed logging from LotusScript Java and server-side, client-side JavaScript. Matt White then created the server-side JavaScript script library in TaskJam, and then when I did the XPages help application about 3 years ago, I, with some help from Nathan Freeman, put it into a Java class that worked within XPages. as I'm sure you're aware, it captures a whole host of extremely useful information, the information about the current user, the page and the database that it's in, the errors, and the particular line information. So why this project? Why not just keep using the XPages help application? And TaskJam, well, TaskJam isn't Apache licensed. And then there were a number of issues around the use in Java that I wasn't comfortable with not really having a good solution to. Uncaught exceptions weren't caught, so if you had server-side JavaScript or a call to Java that wasn't using a try-catch block and it threw an error, it generated the error back to the user on the page, but there was nothing captured so that you could actually deal with it and proactively. Also, if it went to that error page, then the page that was logged was usually the error page, which isn't what you want. What you actually want is the page where the error occurred, the page it came to the error page from. There were multiple errors being logged for the same error because server-side JavaScript and the corresponding Java could run through a number of stages in the life cycle. If it hit an error, it logs it out for every single phase of the life cycle that it hit. It was also code that was stored within an NSF. So when you set up an NSF, you had to copy all of that code across. And although it captured the error for you, there wasn't anything to automatically pass a message back to the user. So those are some of the areas that I've enhanced with the XPages OpenLog logger. We've also got extension library and non-extension library versions. It's available as an OSGI plugin. It can be downloaded from GitHub. Preferences can be set either in the XSP.properties or the notes ini. And we've got a phase listener that runs to exclude any duplicate events. So just to track through the architecture, and this is useful if you're starting to dig into the code and trying to understand what it's actually doing. So in your try-catch block, you'd have the reference to OpenLog bean. That's a managed bean, which corresponds to the OpenLog error holder Java class in the code. And the add error or add event methods of that, they create an instance of an event error class. So it creates that event error object, which captures all the information about what the error is, which components through it, which page it's on, in order to identify unique errors or events so that we can exclude those. Then at the point of the refresh, the phase listener kicks in and it goes to that OpenLog error holder, and if there are any events or errors that have been logged, it captures them, and for each then it generates an OpenLog item, and that OpenLog item class also then references first the XSP.properties in the NSF, then the XSP.properties on the server, and then the notes ini looking for various configuration options that could be set up. So there's quite a bit going on there. And of course, if you're using the extension library version, in the application properties, you need to set up to use the extension library. If you're using the OSGI plugin of XPages OpenLog logger, so you've got it installed on the server, then you don't need any files in the NSF, but you do need to go in and tick the relevant XPage library. So in this case, it's the OpenLog library, so that's enabled. And so let's get on to the demo. And also, when these slides are available, you'll see there's the link there. I've actually recently worked out how to export a Java doc from the code of an NSF, and I've got that published now. So, on to some demos. So first of all, let's here is that Java doc. I'll need to do a bit more work, no doubt, on cleaning it up, but we can see that with the OpenLog error holder class, there are some various fields in there, and the main methods of that error holder are add error and so on, and we can click down to them and see the information about how to actually implement them. And same with the phase listener as well. All that documentation of how to actually use it from either from server-side JavaScript or from Java is also in the NSF that's available on OpenLog. And there are also some sample pages there. So with a course error, what by default it throws back to the user is some quite detailed information of where the error is and what the error is. And as we click buttons, then it throws other errors as well. If you look in the database in the xsp.properties, you'll see there's the sample properties there all commented out, but you can then see what the various settings should be or could be. I mentioned that the errors are thrown out to the user. There's also an option to set a generic error message, so it will still log the detailed error message back to OpenLog, but it will just show a generic error message to the user. And it's also set up now that as well as just storing it in a database, in an OpenLog database on the server, or instead of that, you can actually post it to an email address. And that email address can be a mailing database for OpenLog as well. Those two last preferences there, those are actually requests, feature requests that were put onto the project on OpenNTF, and it wasn't too difficult to set those up, so those are now set up. The most complex area really is the phase listener. So uncaught exceptions can either happen before the render response phase, the final phase in the life cycle, or afterwards. So there's some capturing of those details in both in the before phase and the after phase. The most complex area is on caught exceptions, because the actual error Java class, the underlying Java class, can vary depending upon what actually causes the error. And so there's some complexity, quite a bit of complexity there in actually pulling out what that error message is and giving you as much detail as possible. there may still be some scenarios that I haven't caught there, but hopefully that's captured all of them. So if you are putting it into an NSF rather than using the OSGI plugin, then it's a case of copying across these three Java classes and making an amendment to the faces config to actually set up that phase listener and set up the manage bean. And all of those details, those files are actually available in the import.xml, I think it is, that you can go and point to and automatically pull them directly into a database using the import export from OpenNTF project, which I've got the links to here, so you can just import the reusable control. So hopefully there's a lot of information there and a lot of functionality that you can both use to actually log information out and also use to enhance your own applications. And if you want any additional functionality, then by all means log it onto OpenLog or alternatively raise an issue onto the GitHub project. So now I'll pass on to, I think it's Jens next, is it? So I'll pass that on to Jens, who will continue now.
Right. I'm assuming people can hear me. I'm Jens Bruntt. I'm a systems architect at a Danish business partner, and I've been working with Nodes development since the old version 3. But these days I mostly work with service-oriented architecture, systems architecture. So doing stuff with Android is basically just fun in the evenings. Right. And what I've done is I've created this app that I want to show you a little bit what I've been doing there. So the agenda is going to be just quickly, what does the app do? Then we'll dive into how I've been using the Domino data service API from inside this Android app. And I'll also try and quickly show you how to actually get the project to compile if you want to try and have a look inside the app. Right, so just briefly what this app does. It's a native app, no hybrid or anything. It's all Java. When you have the app installed, what you can do is you can configure it to talk to one or several Nodes discussion databases, and it'll do this using this Domino data service API, and which is a REST API, so it's using HTTP or HTTPS. What it does is it will retrieve all the discussion entries in the NSF, and it'll store them locally in a SQL database or in the app. It has a simple UI to navigate the discussion threads. It lets you compose new entries or replies to what you're reading in the app. And then, of course, it'll submit those new entries to the server. Right, so let's look at how I've been doing this with the Domino REST API, Domino Data Service. And in this part, what I'll be looking at is how do you establish an authenticated session? Because in Domino environments, what you usually want to do is to use the security features of the Domino server, so you don't want to let everyone use the REST API to retrieve data. So how do you actually handle this with the login? And then afterwards, I'll have a look at the Domino Data Service API. How do you read entries from the server? And how do you submit entries to the server using this API? Right. So establishing an authenticated session. Basically, the data service API, that's just HTTP requests that you send to the server. So that's basically like if you had a browser, you would be hitting the server and asking it to show you HTML. But here we're just asking it to give us the JSON. So if the database is protected, so the anonymous user is not allowed to see what's inside, we need to get an LTPA token, because that's the session cookie that tells the Domino server, this is Jens that wants to read your data. So how do we do that? What I've been doing with a couple of apps is basically I emulate what happens if you hit the Domino server with a browser. So I post the standard Domino login form to the server, and when the server sees that this username and password that is posted is correct, it will give me back an LTPA token. And when I get that LTPA token, I'll store it for this session, and I'll then use it in all my REST calls that come after this point in the app logic. And I'll show you a little bit more about this. Right, so now I'd like to show you in a browser. Let's go to a Domino website. And I'll just click the login button just to make you feel, what is that we're doing here. Click the login button. You get the standard Domino login. And I'll just type a password here. And then before we move on, I'll just...
Hey, Jens?
Yeah?
Are you sharing your screen? I don't see it yet.
You don't?
No. Can other people see it?
Oh,
Russ says
sorry.
he can see the screen, so maybe it's only me.
No.
Russ, can you see the screen or the screen?
That's me. Now hopefully
yeah,
you're
that
seeing
looks
my
better.
screen.
Thank you.
That's me. Thank you, Nicholas. Right. I didn't get carried too far away, so here, thank you for stopping me. So I'm just showing you, I'll just click back here. I'm now opening a Domino application, clicking the login, and then what you always get, usually on the Domino server, is this. I'll just type in a password, and then I'll activate the developer tool just to let you show here. I'll click login. So basically what this does is it shows you when you click login in a Domino web application, what happens is you do a post to this URL, to the Domino directory of the server. And what you post is 3 fields, the username and the password, and where to redirect after a successful login. If the login is successful, in the response header from the server, you will get an LTPA token. I have a screen dump showing this. Just a minute. Moving back to the presentation. There it is. Right. This is a screen dump from a successful login, where you can see that I posted some information and a password and my username, and the server, the Domino server, responded with a set cookie HTTP header containing the LTPA token. So what you do is you take this value, put it in a variable, and then you start using that in your calls to the REST API. And then you will be authenticated, and you will get data from the Domino server. Right. And I'll now move over to showing you some code. can you see my, hopefully you see my, my development environment. And I'll show you this function, get authentication token, which basically takes a host name, that's the server, a username and a password, and it'll return a string, and that string will contain the LTPA token. It's really simple. It will, here I built the login path, which is basically path to the Domino directory. And then I set some values. The most interesting ones are the username, the password, and where to redirect afterwards, which is not really something that I use, but I found that I had to include it. Then I've been using the Spring framework to do my calls to the server. That's really not that important. Basically, what my code does is here it posts to the server, and what I'm interested in is what did I get in the response header, because that's where the set cookie is. And then my code looks for where is it? Here. So here I get a list of those items that have this set cookie. And in that list, I will now look for items that start with LTPA token equals, or DOM auth session ID equals something else. That's for a different scenario than what we usually use. But what my code does is it looks for this. If it finds it, great. Then I have an LTPA token. I'll put it in a variable and I'll return it to the code logic, and then my code moves on from there. Right. Back to my slides. There we are. So that's authentication. Now we've authenticated with the server. Now we want to do something with it with the REST API. So how do I read entries from the server? Basically, what you want to do is first you want to retrieve a list of all notes documents inside the NSF. You can do that using this URL, which is basically the path to the NSF, and then it says API data documents. That will retrieve a list of all notes in the database, but it only gets you the modified date, the UNID, and a HTTP address, which points to the note. I'll just show you a screen dump of that. It's this bit. You can see here's the URL, API data documents. It's not a view. This is the API. And for each note, I get just these three fields. Right. Then, if I want to read things like the subject and the body field and all kinds of, all the other notes, note items in the document, what I do is I'll do a new post to or get to the server with the value of the HTTP reference to the document, and what I'll get is the full note. I'll just show you an example of that. This is just a tiny bit of one of those. It's basically I've taken this URL, put it into a browser, and I get this. You can see all of these with the @ those are just system fields, but here you can see there's a body field also. Right. So basically then you just pass this. This is JSON. Right. Submitting entries to the NSF. That's basically that you do a post with a JSON structure in it. I haven't got an example here, but it's just a simple JSON structure. So with only the fields that you need to post. And then you hit a URL like this, data, documents. Then you want to put in what form to use. And then you can, that's an option, you can put in, if you want to do compute with form, just like in Lotus Script or Java, where you can have this compute with form, and it'll compute, and it might throw errors, and those errors are, I'm sorry to say, are not that informative, but you might want to do it. I do it in my discussion app here. Right, so that's submitting entries. Just quickly, what I learned from doing this app is that you really have to remember when you retrieve data from the Domino Data API, remember that NSFs are very flexible when you store data in there. So fields that you thought were dates can be text, they can be numbers, they can be anything. And one example that I found was the body fields. They can be all kinds of types, and that will reflect in the JSON that you get from the server. So it can be plain text, it can be MIME, it can be HTML. So you really have to look at coding defensively here. You really need to try and defend your code against what might happen. Yeah, and it's not. You might not be able to analyze what's in the NSF that you want to talk to. In my example, this app is going to be installed all kinds of places, so I don't know everything about what people put into their discussion database. Right. I think I'll just very quickly just show you how to compile this project. There's some prerequisites. What you want to do is you download the source code. You can do that from the OpenNTF website. There's a zip file. You unzip it, and then you import the code into your Eclipse. I'll just do a little bit of behind the scenes before letting you see this, and then I'll share my screen. Right. So this is the Eclipse client. I'll just show you how to import. Right. See if I can find my code. So here's the zip file, DomDisc. Or not the zip file, but the directory I unpacked it to. Make sure to copy project into workspace, and it'll import. To make the project work, I also have to import a library that's been used in the project, which helps me make sure that the code looks and works good also on older Android versions. Let's just find that library. It's down here, action bar Sherlock. I'll copy that into my workspace. And then I will just fix a compile error in here. It's in the notes. I'll just add the action bar Sherlock to my application, and it'll be happy. In just a second, I could, actually I will. I'll just run this, and what happens is that the code will be installed in my Android emulator, and it'll run. This takes a while. We won't wait for that, but in a few seconds, half a minute, it'll show up here and it'll be ready to go. Right. Just a second. So that's basically how to compile and test this. There's some brief notes about how to do that. And that's basically it. If you want to know more, there's a developed TXT file inside the Domino discussion project. and here's some suggestions for where you can read more. There's lots of stuff you could do with the Data Service API. And that's it. And I'll let Nicholas move us on.
Okay, great. Yeah, good. Thanks a lot, Jens and Oliver and Paul. Jens, could you please unmute everyone via *70?
Alle Teilnehmer befinden sich jetzt im interaktiven Sprechmodus.
Okay, so again, thanks a lot to the speakers. I really liked some of the patterns, like how to wrap up jQuery code to make it easily consumable in custom controls, the face listener implementation from Paul, and especially the how to authenticate from your Android app from Jens. Again, those were just some of the patterns. There's much more interesting stuff in the project. They are all available as open source on OpenNTF. Go download them, play around with them. You know how to reach the people. You can create defects. There's ways to contact them via email. They are all on Twitter. And now is your time to ask questions to these people directly. You can talk yourself if you have dialed into the conference call. Only using the audio cast, please type your questions into the e-meeting and I will bring them up. The first question that Russ had was for Paul. It was about how the OpenLog logger can be extended to have user-specific log options, if I understand that correctly. Paul, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, yeah. So this was something that I thought about a while, about just a few weeks ago, was actually making the XSP.properties computable. And there is a package called value binding util, which has a method for value binding expression. So you can actually pass a string into that, check whether it's a value binding expression, so check whether it's server-side JavaScript or expression language, and then can compute that on the fly. So it should certainly be feasible. It's on the roadmap, hopefully for the next phase. It doesn't look hugely challenging, but as any developer knows, what you think isn't going to be hugely challenging can easily quickly turn out to be an absolute nightmare. But hopefully it'll be fairly straightforward.
Okay. Russ, can you talk? Does it answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. I actually, and I was going to take this offline with Paul just because maybe this is too complex. So, Paul, what I need is everybody logs into one application, but if you log into this application, your data gets stored in that database, a different data database. But if I log into the same application, all my data gets stored in yet a third database. And so it seems to me like if you edit the XSP properties, that would still be controlled by the central database that everybody's using.
Yeah, but if you set the XSP,
how would you implement it if you were going to do it the way that I suggested? And I can contact you outside of this if you want.
Yeah, I'd probably, in that kind of situation, if I wanted user ABC to log to database X and DEF to log to database Y, then I'd map the xsp.openlog.filepath to a session scope variable, for example, and that would work because that actual path, that database is just it's a transient object, so it should calculate each time.
Oh, very cool. Okay, thanks.
Okay, good. And Russ, you had another security-related question for Jens?
I think, Jens, I'm just curious what kind of risks there were with your LTPA token storage, and just how bad are they? I mean, there must be some risk there, but it may not be real bad. Just curious.
Right. Actually, I think there is no issue with the storage of the LTPA token. Not with the token, because I don't really store the token. I just storage for the session where the communication with the Domino server takes place. So the token is really just in memory for maybe a minute, and then it's gone. It's nowhere. So the storage of the LTPA token is not an issue. What is an issue is in the app is that I allow you to use HTTP without the S, because that basically means your username and your password goes over the line unprotected. And that's basically that you shouldn't do that. That's very bad. But that's a whole different issue.
Are you limited? I mean, is there a reason why you didn't do SSL? I mean, can you do it?
Oh yes, it is. It's there. It's in the app. So you can just configure it to do HTTPS.
Gotcha.
But for testing and for the first setup, it really makes things easier if you don't force SSL.
Sure.
But in the app, in the help, I've put some warnings in there to really try and make people aware that you shouldn't do this in production.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, good. Any other questions for the speakers? If not, I have another question for everyone. We will have another webinar at the beginning of next month, but we haven't identified the topic yet. If you are interested in specific topics, just let us know either now or via Twitter, email, whatever, and we will see what we can do. Most probably it will be again on the on the first Tuesday next month. Okay, last chance. Are there any other questions for the speakers? Okay, good. If not, I thank you for attending and hope to see you soon again. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks.